Hi everyone. So as many of you know, April is Autism Month, even though autistic people are autistic all of the time. But I wanted to just take time to talk about my own journey to acceptance. Because what I see out there at the moment are a lot of people thinking that they're advocates for the autistic community, thinking that they're allies, with the best intentions in the world and with hearts of gold, really trying to help the autistic community, in what we're trying to achieve, but they're not going about it the right way, or the messages they're sending out aren't actually the same as what the autistic community are sending out. And there seems to be a bit of miscommunication happening. It kind of looks a bit like people are pretend accepting, autistic people. What I see are, blogs or pages or whatever, people kind of saying autism acceptance, celebrate neurodiversity. But then they're saying things like, oh, autism, gave me a bad day today, or, I'm not going to let autism win. You can't actually say that you're pro neurodiversity and pro autistic and then say things like, autism is terrible and autism is a horrible thing, and I'm not going to let it beat me. That's not acceptance. So you haven't accepted the autistic person. What I also see is people, autistic pages and autistic groups, saying things and people misinterpreting them a lot of the time. What happens a lot of the time is that autistic people are saying we should not be highly anxious, we should not have challenging behaviors, we should not, have issues with executive dysfunction. There's a lot of things that autistic people should not have. We shouldn't be experiencing them. And the fact that we are just illustrates the lack of understanding that is out there around us and all of that. What seems to be happening is people are hearing autistic people don't have anxiety and don't have challenging behaviors and don't have issues with executive function or social anxiety, etc. Nobody is saying that. We all have those issues, but the reason why is nothing to do with autism, this word that people talk about. It has nothing to do with being autistic. It is a human response to living in the way autistic people live, which means that the world rejects us. The world doesn't respond to us in the way that it responds to the majority of people. The world says the way we think is wrong. The world says the way we communicate is wrong. The world says the way that we interact with our environment is wrong. Words used to describe us are disordered. If you look at anything to do, it's defective, it's impairment, it's all negative words. So that is how we are actually viewed by the world. Obviously, we then react to that because we pick up on that's how we're being viewed. That's how people are, see us. We feel that, and we then respond to that. And if you can imagine what it's like to live like that, and that happens at a really, really young age, it creates a lot of our issues. People think that a child who is exhibiting challenging behaviors is that's because of their autism or something, or sensory issues, or something that some misinformed person has told them. It's not. It's a human behavior. Why would any human being behave like that? Autistics are human. We follow the same patterns and reactions as every other human being. We're not a separate breed, So I think people really need to start understanding that we are human beings. Our responses are human. If a child is exploding, there's a reason behind it. Yes, a lot of autistic people need routine. Look at the world right now. What has this taught us in the last few weeks? All human beings need routine. All of us need certainty. Unfortunately, autistics don't have that certainty in our lives because there's always someone talking for us. There's always someone else making decisions. So we actually have a huge level of uncertainty in our lives, which leads to high anxiety. The way people are responding to us makes us feel bad about ourselves. That, of course, is going to change how we act, how we interact with other people. It's going to change our communication, our thinking. It's definitely going to change our behavior. And that's what autistic people are saying. we're saying that we shouldn't be experiencing these high levels of anxiety and stress and depression. We shouldn't have, you know, an average life expectancy of 54 years of age. We shouldn't have it. And the reason we do is because we have heart attacks, because of our poor living in oppression, our poor mental health, suicides, and lots of other medical conditions that, you know, go along with living in oppression. We don't know what an autistic person who is fully accepted looks like. We don't know what it's like to let a child develop, embrace their, you know, autisticity from the beginning, and let them grow and develop in an autistic way. We are autistic. We develop autistically. We have our own developmental paths. We play autistically. You know, we just develop differently. And every therapy that's out there almost is all about trying to force an autistic child to develop in a non-autistic way. That in itself is going to cause stress. That in itself is going to send a message to the child that the way you are isn't acceptable. You can't do the things that are natural to you. You must do them this way. I don't know when society is going to learn. We've already tried this, you know, back up until the 1970s. If you were part of the LGBTQIA community, you got a diagnosis, you had a medical condition, you were then sent off for conversion therapies to try to make you straight. It didn't work. It can't work. It shouldn't work. We shouldn't be looking for ways to make people the same as everybody else. It didn't work for them, and it's not working for autistic people. And we're just following in that movement's footsteps. We're literally just saying we need to be ourselves. We need to cut out this idea that autistic people need to be trained to do everything, that we don't have social skills. Autistic people communicate just fine with ourselves, within our own groups. You can see kids that even don't have a language. There's still communication. This idea that language is communication and speech is communication and kids can't communicate. Utter nonsense. And if you spend a bit of time with a group of autistic kids who are not speaking, you'll see them interacting. You'll see the communication that's going on. You just need to see it, and you just need to open your mind that communication is something different. I suppose what I wanted to say is that, you know, autistic adults, we went the same path. You know, we got a diagnosis. We were told, you know, this is a medical thing, you know. Kind of then what of course we all do was we start reading the whole internet, and we start going to every conference, and we start buying all the books, and we try and find out as much as we can. And I did that too, and many autistic people I know did that. And then I came across the autistic community probably, I don't know, a year or two into my own journey, and my whole perspective just changed, and I started listening to what autistic people were saying. Some of the stuff they were saying wasn't making sense to me at the time. Even things like they were saying autistic with autism, I remember thinking, what does it matter? It's just words. But I didn't get it. And years on, I got it, and I understand how important it is, because we're autistic, it's our identity. It isn't a medical thing. To say with autism is actually a medical term. You know, so also there's a huge cure industry around autism. So you know what, you can call me whatever you like, as long as kids aren't being abused, basically. If you say you're with autism, you're kind of inferring you could be without autism. You know, if you did the right things. And there's a huge cure, horrendous stuff out there, you know, to kind of preying on vulnerable parents and children. So we took that same journey. And I suppose for me, finding the autistic community was life-changing. I think finding out I was autistic was life-changing. But meeting the autistic community, connecting with other autistic people, reading what autistic people around the world are saying, really made way more sense to me than kind of what is maybe in the professional world, or what the maybe medical professionals are saying about us. So if you do anything this April, and you're a parent of an autistic child, or you have an autistic person in your life, I would say, please start engaging with the autistic community. We are here to help. We, you know, we get massive feedback from parents who are reading our stuff, coming to, you know, Awesome Ireland in particular as well, you know, or people who come to the courses, come to read things I post on social media. You know, we've gone into schools training and everything. Like, the feedback is just unreal, because people are saying, oh, it's so different hearing it from an autistic person, and it makes so much sense, because when I explain something, I'm not just saying autistic people are anxious. I can explain exactly why and how it starts, and I explain all the whys behind what you're seeing. And I think a lot of the time people are just kind of saying, this is what autistic people do because they're autistic. Everything an autistic person does is not, can't be just, you know, down to autism. So really, you know, it took me a while, I think, to fully accept what being autistic is, and I fully embraced it. You know, I mean, I was very positive about my diagnosis and everything when I was very much pro neurodiversity, but I really didn't get it for a year or two. You know, I didn't get it for a while. You know, I used to use words like, oh, I'm an Aspie, and things to describe myself, because, you know what, autistic, it just, I wasn't comfortable with it. And I suppose a lot of people are on that journey. And it's just trying to find a way to fully understand, I think, what being autistic actually is, and what being autistic really means. And I think that's really what we are all exploring at the moment, and what different autistic people around the world are talking about. And it's a really kind of exciting time. And we are all really moving on from this idea that autistic people are somehow defective. You know, we are absolutely disabled by our society, absolutely, but do we have to be? You know, there's a lot of questions around that. And I think it starts with trusting us and listening to what we have to say. Because a lot of the time, you know, somebody might get into an argument with an autistic person, but all they're doing is talking about somebody else's ideas that they're kind of going on the advice that maybe somebody who's not autistic has given them about themselves or about their child. And then they're kind of saying that the autistic person is wrong in what they're saying. We're fully aware that we're contradicting what's out there already. We have to, because it is so wrong and so damaging. But we are asking you to trust us and to allow us to take you on that journey, because getting to that step where you fully accept and embrace who you are, or who your child is, when that happens, it's just life-changing.